you've developed as a key part of the strategy through which we could make a revolution is encapsulated in a slogan: fight the power and transform the thinking, and transform the people for revolution. Fight the power and transform the people for revolution. And you said that the second part of this, while both are important, everything has to be for revolution, it's important. You said this tonight, that people stand up and they fight against the system and their oppression, but that the pivotal thing here is transforming the thinking of people. And people are thinking a lot of bullshit. You've brought that out very viscerally. But I want you to continue to go on this, because if we don't do this, you've made the point that if you don't transform the thinking of people and they don't get into the revolution, the world's going to stay the oppressive shithole that it is. I wanted to ask you, and just listening to those stories, how did this come to you? This has been we have to be honest, this has been a contentious issue within the movement for an actual revolution. People like the first part, but the second part, maybe not so much, because you're struggling with the very people you need to get into the revolutions.
Well, I think the point's been made, and it's important to, to understand this deeply, that, Mao said, wherever there is oppression, there will be resistance. And that's not just because Mao said it, but it's actually capturing an important part of reality. People do rise up all the time. Again, they may be, their anger may be suppressed, their outrage may be contained for a while, but eventually resistance does break forth all the time. And we see this all around us. But the question is, where is it going to go? And then it's the even more fundamental question is, what are the things that they're rebelling against? Considering that in its essential character and main aspect, its basic role, it's positive. What are the things that they're rebelling against rooted in? Because again, if you want to uproot something, you have to know what is rooted in. Mm-hmm. So people rebel, but on their own. Yes, look, this has been a big argument in the communist movement, still is. Is there something inherent, sort of, in the nature of oppressed people, that they will come to the basic desire for revolution on their own? Because, given their oppressed condition, they just kind of know that they need to make a revolution. Well, no. That goes back, Lenin made that point, over 100 years ago. Yes, people who are oppressed will gravitate, will be inclined toward and move toward fighting against their oppression and even wanting to eliminate it. But then there's all the larger influences of the overall society that pull them back another way. There's the daily struggle to survive for, billions of people on the planet, and masses of people in this country included. There's all the ideas that are pumped out continually from the ruling institutions and the massive machinery of molding public opinion that they have through the educational system, through the culture, through the media, just in a multidimensional way, they shape people. So yes, people may be inclined in the direction of wanting to get rid of this, but then they get pulled back on their own by all this other stuff. So their resistance is always going to end up ultimately in a dead end. And then when it ends up in a dead end, people get demoralized. They say, and people even say it to us, well, look, we fought all this, we fought so hard, so many people came out, and we couldn't even put an end to police brutality, or we couldn't even save the right to abortion, so how could we ever make a revolution? But see, that's drawing the wrong conclusion, because in order to stop police brutality, in order to ensure the rights of women, including the right to abortion, you have to get rid of the system that is going to prevent that, that's going to oppress and suppress that. So if people are left on their own, they're going to end up in a dead end. Plus, they're not really on their own, as we all know. There are all kinds of other forces out there promoting all kinds of different programs which remain within and lead people within the confines of the system and back into a demoralizing dead end. Defund the police is a perfect example. Or in the abortion battle, well, don't worry because we'll have the abortion pill. And not recognizing how they're going to go after that too. And plus, the masses of women don't even have access to that, even if things weren't going the way they are. But all these illusions are promoted by all these different forces. So yes, look, if people, Marx made this point, and it's a very important point. If the masses don't stand up and fight back against their oppression, they will be reduced to broken wretches who are not capable of anything higher. You know, and just put it simply, if people are beaten down, how are they going to rise up for a revolution? So, you know, both because it's important that people not be forced to... I mean, right now I'm reading on our website, revcom.us, about a prisoner strike in Alabama, horrific conditions that are just, you know, unbelievable, you know, what people are being put through. It's just like a killing place, you know, and... You know, is it much better that people are rising up there, you know, even though that's not going to go all the way to revolution by itself? Of course, because people shouldn't be subjected to this. And also, if they're broken, you know, if they just are constantly broken down, how are they ever going to be able to rise up for anything bigger? So for both reasons, resistance is very important. Rebellion against oppression is very important. But then... You know, and people have commented on this, people, when they do rise up, they raise their heads and they think about things they don't normally think about. And they're open to thinking about things they don't normally think about or don't even want to think about. So that provides more opportunity and opening to actually get with them and lead them to the solution to all this, namely revolution. But left to itself, we've seen this over and over again. It doesn't go to revolution for all the reasons I was just discussing. So people have to be transformed, and the main thing, that means transformed in their thinking. It doesn't mean they have to wear different clothes. I mean, maybe in some cases that might be appropriate. I don't know. But it means transform in their thinking. In other words, in their understanding of why they're in the situation they're in. Could anything be done about it? What's the cause of it? If you understand the cause, is there a solution to that? What is that solution? And along with that, what is the morality that people have if they want to get out of all this? Is it go for yourself and fuck everybody else, or even a nicer version of that? Well, I'm doing me and you do you and we'll all get along, which doesn't lead where it needs to go. Or do they need to understand, again, what all this is rooted in? And do they need to be, you know, be transformed to be fighters against all oppression, to be emancipators of humanity, to be revolutionaries aiming to emancipate people all over the world ultimately, and to see themselves as in the same fight with people all over the world who are fighting against this oppression in all different forms. See, so that this is why, you know, even in order to continue fighting in the short run, people's sights need to be raised, and their understanding of the problem and solution on a scientific basis needs to be developed and strengthened, even in order to keep fighting short of revolution, and certainly in order to actually, once again, uproot the cause of all this. Their thinking needs to be transformed into see, people are trained to be unscientific. They're trained to be subjective. That is, you know, you respond by subjective, I mean, you're the subject. And whatever happens to you, you respond personally to that. That's what we mean by subjective. You know, you're the subject acting in the world, and whatever affects you personally, that's how you respond to it. Rather than seeing the larger picture, even the larger picture of why this is happening to you, let alone what's happening to a whole bunch of other people beyond you who are in the basic same situation that you're in. So this is what we mean that it's pivotal to transform the thinking of people. Not, you know, often it's not each one, teach one. You know, that's, you know, gradual, slow education. It's transforming the thinking of masses of people by going to masses of people and putting forward, like I said, in everyday language but scientifically based, why this is happening, what it's rooted in, how it relates to other things going on and other ways people are oppressed, and how we can actually get rid of all this, and therefore what your whole outlook needs to be about all this, and what your approach needs to be, and yes, what your morality needs to be in terms of what you're aiming for and what you're basing yourself on. Yes, people, you know, go through hardship, but you're not alone in going through hardship. Billions of people are going through hardship every day, and I've made this point before. You could find a person who's suffering the worst you could imagine somewhere in Louisiana or Mississippi or New York City, and there is somebody else in the world going through even worse. So how do we understand that? How do we relate to that? Is it like, well, that's their problem, and this is my problem? Which means that neither one of you will get out of it. Or if a few of you get out of it, the masses of people won't get out of it. Or do you say, let's look for what we have in common, but more deeply than that, let's look at what it all comes from. Let's take a look. I've said a lot about science, but science is not a mystery. It's just actually engaging, reality. It's just interacting with the larger reality and then looking for what the evidence, see, that's the point that Ardea Skybreak has made, in an interview, Science and Revolution, which you can find at revcom.us. Science is an evidence-based process. It means you interact with reality, you discover the evidence about reality, and then you look at it broadly, and you analyze it, broadly, and then you bring it together, you synthesize it, you bring it together to identify what's essential about it. What are the patterns in it? What are the underlying causes of it? So this is what it means to transform the thinking of people. Everybody can take up a scientific approach. You don't have to be, look, if you're not a professional scientist, you're not going to be able to engage in a particular sphere of science the same way somebody who's a professional is. That's not what we're calling for. We're not saying everybody has to have a PhD in revolution. We're saying you can get the basic scientific method and keep on learning it as you apply it and drawing the lessons and doing that as part of a collective process where people are working and struggling with each other and helping each other understand the deeper causes of things. Everybody can do that. I don't care what your level of education is. It does, you can have the Ivy League degree or you can have dropped out of school in the 5th grade. Everybody can apply science if they put themselves to it and if they're led to do it, and it's part of a collective process. And that's what we need. And people, that's what is meant by transform the thinking of people. Transform their thinking from the spontaneous ways that they're misled to misunderstand what's going on, to have a scientific approach. And with that scientific approach, you get the understanding that grounds, that provides the foundation for a different morality, where you're not just out for yourself because you understand that being out for yourself is not going to lead to the kind of world that we need. It's not going to lead to getting rid of all the oppression that you're being subjected to, but now you're learning about a whole bunch of other people are being subjected to. But it does correspond to maybe the dreams you've had, or the hopes you've had for some kind of world where all this doesn't go on. That's what it means to transform the thinking of the people, while we're also mobilizing and uniting with people to fight the power, to fight the outrages of the system, all in order to do those 3 prepares. Prepare the ground, the political situation, prepare the masses of people, not just a few, thousands and millions ultimately, and prepare the leadership that the masses of people need, the scientifically based leadership, yes, based on the new communism, as a scientific method and approach to lead those broader masses of people to actually work their way through all the contradictions you're going to encounter in order to actually break apart the system and bring it down.